The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mike, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. We're open line through till 1. So whatever you want to talk about, you're on the air. Text 166 177, WhatsApp 166 177, email studio at manxradio.com, call 66 1368. Dr. Allinson's not happy with the current position of Manx Care and is urging the health body to keep to its spending. The Treasury Minister was answering a listener question this morning on The Breakfast Show about the health service, saying more priority will be going towards primary care like GP services and dentistry, amongst others. So, well, who knows? We could actually get enough dentists to get everybody on the list. Fingers crossed anyway. That's Dr. Allinson. He's on the Mannin Line next week, by the way. Next Wednesday, the Treasury Minister will be on Mannin Line. If you want to chat to him, he'll be on live Wednesday 26th. And a week after that, we're live at Queen Elizabeth High School in Peel, Queen Elizabeth II High School, and then the Chief Minister's on Friday the 7th. So next week the Treasury Minister, the week after that live in Peel, and the Chief Minister will be on Mannin Line. Let's get to the phones now, and David's with us now first. Hi David.
Hi Randy, I just want to flip back to tradesmen, where there used to be, and I thank Alf for mentioning it. I'll listen again on that, but I'll be in touch with him. Because I used to be one time representing the T&G in the Building Trades Council with the Employers Federation, where you had to be a builder, you had to have a certified brickie and joiner and a premises to work from. So it brings the question, people have been giving me information and stuff like that, and I've been asking about it within government departments, but it's probably hard for them when the budget was up. But I just thought to myself, what's happening at the nurses' home there? Are there, because it's an arm's length organisation, you can't ask them for information under the Freedom of Information Act, like other organisations which government fund, which seems a nonsense. But is there, how many tradesmen are they carried? Do they do any checks? Who's looking after what they call the building control on that? It's probably the Douglas Council that's operating that. But years ago, there used to be the foreman on site would have a register. You had to be a card-carrying person, be a tradesman for the electrician, plumber, joiners, plasterers. And the other day, even in Onken, we had a planning application. I noticed when it came up on the screen, it said registered plasterers. So that's fine. I just wonder what we're doing now and what do people, when they're looking for security for somebody to do work for them, where do they go to nowadays?
And that's the point, David. That is the point. So if you're in the trade, you know your way around it. You know how everything works. But as a customer, as a layperson, somebody who just wants something done, I would venture to suggest most people haven't got a clue what sort of qualifications you look for. No,
they don't. And that's the problem when, at least we've got the Cold Calling Act. So people, if somebody knocks on your door, it's against the law. It's an offence to cold call in the Isle of Man. You need to use that on the phone when people call you up as well from across. I still haven't got my solar panels from the UK, although I've asked for them. But I never got them. But it was just to put it out there. And a lot of tradesmen, I just wondered what's happening with the industry itself. What's government arm doing that? It used to be years ago, it was in the DOT, which is now the DOI. It's still their responsibility. Who checks that if you get a grant or something like that, you're getting a good deal, you're getting a registered contractor to do the work, and they'll come back if anything's wrong? That's the issue.
And going back
the final
to just going back to the nurses' home now, presumably as the Manx Development Corporation, or as we know them, Accommodation Anonymous, as they've got that together, you would assume that whoever their contractor is that's finally getting that work done, that everybody there's surely got to be qualified and certified.
Well, the jury's out because nobody will answer the question. And years ago, it used to happen on the major jobs like big hospitals and stuff like that. There was a fellow that come in from Social Security and checked up whether they were paying national insurance, were they self-employed. And the guy from Peel, he was great. And he took on a major guy years ago and got into a lot of bother down at South Quay. But I hope he might come out in the future. And even Bernard, I'd love you to get Bernard on again. Bernard's still around, although we're all getting older. But maybe invite Bernard in and give a view on what happened years ago, what should be happening now.
We'll call it the Moffat line.
Well, yes, there's a lot of history in that guy. That's the way I look at it is. He needs to write his memoirs. I've told him several times he needs to do that because a lot of things went on in the Isle of Man and a lot of government people got involved at an early stage and solved issues.
Yeah, and just going back, going back to the nurses' home. Now, what's the guy called who's employed by the client, the architect? Clerk of Works.
The Works.
Yeah, so presumably there'll be a Clerk of Works knocking around as well. I mean, do they have any responsibility to make sure that everybody's certified and you've got qualified tradesmen working there?
Yes, they do. And I'd be asking somebody in Treasury. I'm not going to ask Dr. Hunson. He's got up on his plate at the minute. But at the end of the day, somebody must be in the Treasury Department that's responsible for capital projects. You listened the other day there, or it could have been today, they've already spent $2 million on schemes at Castle Rushen. And we haven't got a brick laid on the... I don't know whether we've even got... they've gone out to tender and seeking quotes.
And that's, again, where I think the public scratch their head and just say, how can you spend £2 million and not turn a sod, not put a digger in the ground?
Yeah, and not even having a contract online.
Yeah.
Because we are going to struggle, and I'd hate if government are listening, and they will be, hate for them to carry in contractors from the UK. Causes difficulty, and we don't get anything out of it.
Okay.
Apart from accommodation. See you, boy.
Appreciate it. Thanks for calling today. And if anybody in the construction industry can navigate this for us, because as a member of the public, you simply don't know. And let's face it, a lot of people get work done according to price. But you would assume that legislation is there to make sure that that price will make sure that the work is done by a qualified tradesperson, shall we say. I didn't ask David. I wonder if his solar panels are coming from China. I wonder. Richard dropped a note in. Plenty of focus on spending plans in the budget, but it seems no scrutiny of the reserves that have again been dipped into to cover spending plans. So, well, Richard, we've got some of those questions. I'll get those questions and we'll put them to the Treasury Minister next week. Thanks for that. Many of them, and detailed ones as well. Anyone working for government-funded works have to have trade cards and directly employed unless they have a contract themselves with the government, says Pat. Debbie Reeve, who is the Chief Officer, has just confirmed that by email to me. Thank you, Pat, on 223. And again, this is just it may be industry knowledge. It may be that the people in charge understand this. It's just that perhaps the public doesn't quite understand what legislation underpins this. Just regarding comments yesterday, 490, about my thoughts, we're quickly losing our ability to talk to people face to face. It was Robert who called in yesterday, and he reckoned that the government website is a bit outdated and should have a chat facility. And obviously, if you bank online or if you go to lots of websites, they have a chat facility. A little animated face will pop up and say, "How can I help you? My name is insert name of random person." And you chat away to that, and if it can't help, then somebody will probably call you. But this phone I know just said, I understand correctly, Robert wants to be able to ask questions of the government via his computer. I think we're being forced into being like robots, just like the films of the 60s used to think we would. So some of us can't cope with this. It's a different language. Would this not slow things down? Because surely somebody has to read all the reams of rubbish that will be written and then answered. Well, a lot of it is AI, artificial intelligence, and they'll employ. Sometimes they do have real people who do that, but it's just a way of. And surely government wants to interact with people more. And if this is a way of doing it, then, well, of course, it would cost money, and we know money's tight. As I get older, says 895, I follow politics mainly through Manx Radio, listening to people's opinions. I emailed one of my MHK several weeks ago about an issue I have in my area of Douglas. No reply as yet. So to my question, when we get to vote, is there a box on the ballot paper that says none of the above? And if so, if enough people vote this way, what happens? It's like going to a garage to buy a new car and seeing nothing suitable. You don't buy one anyway, so why are we electing people who clearly have no clue or nous to run the Isle of Man? I, for one, and I'm not alone, says 895, not alone, I'm sick of the government. Feels like the working population's getting squeezed to breaking point. Actually, says Steve, I'm scared stiff if I get ill. And have no faith in the way that the health service is being run. Well, we don't have a none of the above. You can spoil your paper, and I suppose that will count the same thing. But there is a way through all this, and of course, and that is to stand yourself, to put yourself forward for the public vote. It's maybe not everybody's idea of a fun thing to do for 5 years, but it's a way of influencing thing. And you may remember it's a wee while ago when Beastie called and said that the Ramsay Against Insensitive Development campaign group, cracky, is it 25 years ago and more, decided that they had to get into the democratic process, and they did by getting people into the commissioners in Ramsay. That's how they did it. So the Treasury Minister was talking about not being happy with Manxcare. He said Manxcare was created to improve quality and services while adhering to a budget. According to the Minister, the Treasury Minister, Dr. Allenton, Health and Social Care's got an extra $100 million in supplementary since 2019. And Dr. Allenton says health is the biggest part of government spending.
I'm not happy with the current position because Manxcare was created to improve quality, improve services, but also stick to a budget. And this arm's length idea was meant to bring less political involvement and more clinical involvement into the provision of healthcare. But since 2019, we've seen health and social care spending. We've had £100 million in supplementary votes going into it. The budget for this year was 347 million. The budget for next year, we're making available 371 million pounds for it. And again, as I was saying, we have to deliver. People have to see the benefits of that, which is why I was really impressed by the Minister, Claire Christian, coming forward during the budget saying extra resources. The main priority this year would be in primary care, in GP services, in dentistry, to actually make sure that people could access those early, get preventative medicine, rather than end up in A&E and Nobles.
How crucial is it, Manxcare's spending? How crucial is it that it's brought under control in the next year? Because a lot of people listening now might think if it's not, then what will next year's budget involve? Will there be further tax hikes again to cover the costs?
It is essential. It's now the biggest part of our government spending. It's outstripped even benefits and pensions now, at a total of £387 million. And so an even small percentage overspend of that can be the entire budget of Home Affairs, the entire budget of DEFA, who've been cutting down all the trees. So it's absolutely vital that they come in on budget, but also that they provide those services. And that's why we need healthcare reform. We need to put the patient first. We need more on-island facilities in terms of treatment rather than sending people off island. But we need also to look at how people are treated in primary care and stop them having to need what can often be expensive and time-consuming treatments either here or across.
Where does this end? where do you think? I mean, obviously, we'll be chatting to Dr. Allinson next Wednesday just to see whether he knows, whether he's got a plan in his head. Of course, he's ideally placed. He's a medical man. He's got a medical background. He's a senior politician. He's Treasury Minister, and he's an MHK. So it would just be nice to know, because you just get the feeling at some point that we're kind of sliding out of control. I don't know, overstate it, but we need progression, not regression, don't we? We need to be moving forward. There's no such thing as the status quo, if you like, in politics or in finance. You're either going backwards or forwards. It's hoped that we're going forwards. Juan's on now. Hi, Juan.
How are you, Andy? For home of the $7 a dozen eggs at the moment. Avian bird flu has reached America. $7 a dozen. Would you believe?
Crikey.
Crazy times. Sliding out of control. Yeah, look, going down that there chute at the NSC, doesn't it? They're sliding that fast out of control. Did I hear you say Alf Cannon's on soon?
Yes, he's going to be on in a couple of weeks' time. A week? It's going to be a week on Friday. Oh, no, 2 weeks on Friday he's going to be on.
I shall put that in my diary. I think for the start of the programme, you should play that Cilla Black song, What's It All About, Alfie? And see how we go from there.
I'm sure he's heard it before.
I'm sure he has. He's heard them all. Interesting yesterday, Brian was on last night. He was talking about Peter Villas, I think, who worked for Albert Goubet. I think Peter was due to, or put up to stand in the last election, if I'm right.
I think Peter did stand in Onken.
He did indeed, yeah. But I think Peter left his campaign very, very late and didn't get in. But going on to the point that you made there about people standing for local elections, I think if people stood for local elections who really want to make a difference, forget about the MHK side, because it's very complicated for a lot of people, but people standing for local elections could make a difference on the island and maybe steer government the way that it should be steered, hopefully. I noticed Lamara Crane in Ramsey pushing for people to stand for election. I mean, I don't agree with a lot Lamara says, but I do agree with that.
And that's the point. Juan, that is the point. We don't have to agree. You know, it's important that there is a diversity of opinion, and, you know, we've all got the same opportunity to get into public life. We can all throw our hat into the ring. You know, it doesn't cost an absolute fortune. But you know, as you say, that's the whole point. It's good to disagree sometimes. It's good that people do have different views and respect each other.
And that comes back to freedom of speech, doesn't it, Andy? And not having controls over people. So, like you say, it's quite right. So people can actually voice their opinions and have freedom of speech and not be afraid of being arrested for something that they said. Because at the end of the day, it's sticks and stones, it used to be called, and a bit of common sense. Just a couple of points. I know, I think it was Viv that spoke a few weeks ago and said about how bad Trump is and the Trump regime and how invasive it is. But I find it interesting that, you know, you've got a guy there who's actually trying to stop a war, and everyone on the other side of the fence is condemning him for being a warmonger. And you know, whether it's relevant to the Isle of Man, and I think it is quite relevant to the Isle of Man of what's happening and what's getting exposed by Doge and everything, and the money that's getting turned around and sent back to various people. So it's going to be interesting how this plays out. But on that part of it as well, and looking at the possible ban on mRNA vaccines and the damage that's being caused by the COVID vaccines, which is now again all coming to light. It takes its time, and of course Kennedy's campaign on it, and a lot of this again is down to quality of food that we eat in processed foods, etc., which we spoke about a lot about the Isle of Man. And again, I think it's important again that we keep ourselves not insular, but keep our community going between ourselves and keep that food quality up. And I know people go on about expense, but the expense to the health service as well when we keep stuck in like seriously bad food down us. So I think it'd be nice to really support the local food.
Well, and on that note, I can mention that today it's the Isle of Man Farmers Market at St John's.
There you go. And I think a lot of this stuff as well is the chemicals and pesticides that are put into the ground and everything now, and what cows are eating. They're not grass fed, and it's all that's relevant to our state of health, I think. So it's just getting a happy balance on that.
Okay.
Leading on from that, you were talking about Cape Lord Brennan yesterday. I totally agree. Like most people, I think we've talked about this for many months. But it'd be nice to ask Kate cite her reasons why she's made that U-turn.
Interesting, wasn't it? She never said that when she was in Comyn, did she?
No, not at all. And it's a very, very interesting U-turn. And like you've said many, many times, Andy, the people had this green issue or this green thing on their agenda last time, and people voted for it, saying, well, yeah, we want to save the planet and do this and do that. And now people are realising the cost that's involved in this, and also the truths that's actually involved in this. People are now coming to terms with that. But I'd be very interested to know why Kate has done that U-turn. Very interested indeed. So I think that's more or less me for today, Andy.
Appreciate
I'm going to go out and do a bit of kayaking.
Yeah, go make a big omelette. Okay.
So,
28 minutes past 12. Anne dropped me a note just to say, I'm curious to know how many people are in the government climate change team. What are they investigating with this move they want to turn? Or there's a possibility they're suggesting that all our taxes should be electric taxes. How many man hours have been allocated to this nonsense, says Anne. There so many unsuitable aspects of electric vehicle being used as a taxi: purchase costs, range, battery limitations, just to name a few. I think it's an outrageous waste of taxpayers' money, says Anne. Chris is with us now. Hi, Chris.
Good morning, Andy. Andy, infuriated with Alex Allinson's position today. He yet again is trying to apply a narrative which distracts the fact that government itself cannot run a budget, and they're trying to put all the blame on Manx Care, which is just disgraceful. Okay, I'm, like many others, critical of some of the aspects of how Manx Care are trying to get their act together. But for the Treasury Minister to come on, and if you listen to what he said carefully, he was trying to say, well, there's no savings to be made anywhere else, but Manx Care have got to get their act together. Well, let me just say this to Alex Allinson, and I'd say it straight to his face. It's about time Treasury and the government got their act together about their overspending, because the forecast right the way through now to 29-30 shows very, very considerable multi-million pound overspending on the part of government and eating into reserves. And it's just got to stop. And they must not place all the blame on Manx Care. Yeah, Manx Care have got problems, but so has government. I mean, all that's happening now, the accelerating cost of care, accelerating cost of pensions, etc., was all very clear in 2015, which is why I tried to put forward the argument that we needed to run a slimmer, smarter government under the basis of a reform process. That was completely rejected at the time because people were too comfortable with what they were doing, and they have moved no further forward at all. When we had that £200 million sudden hit following the VAT reduction, in that 3-year period following that, we cut back about 125 million and passed on to the next house a problem of recovering the next 75 million. Andy, we're still there, and according to forecast, by the end of the decade, we're still going to be overshooting and eating into our reserves. So I say to Alex Allinson, eat your own words, Alex, and get on with the job of cutting costs in government as a whole and making it more streamlined. One example, AG's department years ago had 12 people in it. It's got 75 people in it now. How damn ridiculous. Frankly, Andy, I've had it with the way government are behaving over budgets. They are just so comfortable and so complacent, and they need to stop blaming Manx Care for everything, because it won't do.
Do you think this has got anything to do with the hangover from COVID and the fact that government money was splashed here, there and everywhere, and government realised they could spend money during COVID almost with impunity? Do you think there's any hangover from that?
I've kept quiet since COVID because I thought that any administration had the right to try to get into a recovery position following COVID. But if you look at the forecast now, Andy, they're not reducing costs at all. If you go back a couple of years ago, they were post-COVID, they were forecasting they would have balanced the books by 28, 29, and yet the latest forecast, 29-30, shows that they're multi-million pound in debt. And it seems to me that Alex Allison's going to go to the next election saying, it wasn't me, Your Honour, it was Manx Care. Oh, no, it wasn't. Manx Care have got issues to sort out, and I'm the first to admit that, but so's the government. I mean, it really won't do. It really won't do. They cannot just blame this on COVID.
Okay, so looking forward, the key is always business. You know, we have to have economic activity on the Isle of Man to drive tax revenues. Where's that impetus going to come from, Chris? Where's the new business, the new industries coming from?
Well, there are no indicators that I've got that things are moving forward in the right direction. I mean, there's this talk about increasing the population. We've got to do an awful lot more than that. What we've got to do, amongst other things, is start being fairer to the low-paid and those at the lower end of the middle income, because they get eaten alive by national insurance. And this is, again, something that's been going on for years and something that I've consistently argued with. I was arguing with Treasury in 2015 that they needed to be much fairer to the low-paid. Low-paid and those above that are on the same tax and insurance rate overall as the equivalent in the UK, and yet their cost of living is higher. You know, governments have really got to start behaving themselves. It's just not good enough. Now, why I'm particularly angry is twice now Alex has applied a deflective narrative about his budget. If you remember, before the budget, he came out and said, don't worry, the pensioners are safe, and don't worry, the NI fund's safe, and don't worry, the reserves are safe. What did he actually do? He ate into the reserves. He pinched money from the NI fund, which is, you know, pensioners' funds in years to come, and ate into the reserves. I mean, people have got to see through this. People have got to challenge. I mean, I'm perfectly happy to come on with Alex on that programme and challenge him face to face, because I've had it, Andy. The government have got to get a grip.
Okay, all right. Chris, we appreciate it as always. Thanks for calling today.
Thanks, Andy. Bye-bye.
26 minutes now before 1. Manx Care's accused an Onchan MHK of making sweeping and factually incorrect statements in Tynwald. The Onchan MHK's Julie Edge. Julie Edge claimed that Noble's Hospital was almost on a code red for staffing levels over the weekend. This is what Julie Edge had to say.
There was knowledge in nursing circles this weekend that we were possibly on a code red in Noble's Hospital for staffing levels. But we also know that bank workers have been stopped. The very nurses that we would have needed to stop a code red, but they've been stopped by these two individuals that have come in to look at efficiencies and effectiveness. Stopping frontline workers is impacting safe levels of care for our people.
That's what Julie Edge said under parliamentary privilege. She said that in Tynwald, Manx Care aren't happy about it. We flagged it to Manx Care and asked for clarification over the comments. They told us via a short statement there was a code red situation, but not caused by the shortage of staff. But Manx Care wants to correct inaccuracies, saying that a code red refers to a security incident at the hospital, not to staffing levels. There was a code red incident at the hospital on the 16th of February, which was dealt with according to hospital procedures, and no further action was necessary. They also said that the area where the code red occurred was in the acute medical unit, and this was at 9 minutes past 10 p.m. on Sunday evening. The staffing at the time was 4 registered nurses and 2 healthcare assistants, which was above the minimum safe staffing levels agreed. Manx Care remains committed to both the safe staff and safe levels and 24/7 and this, that and the other. And they say statements based on hearsay can be very unhelpful and lead to unnecessary anxiety in the public. Well, Julie Edge is an elected representative, and I'm sure Julie Edge, with her background, wouldn't say things to cause anxiety, something happened somewhere. There was lots of comment on the Manx Care Facebook page, which you can take a look at if you wish. But that situation doesn't seem to be going away. Tons of messages getting in today, which I'll... shall we have a break or shall I get to some messages? We'll do the messages. Planning is the main issue. It's been reported that charities get free planning, which is being abused. The same with VAT. Who checks it is not being abused. Who checks it is not being abused, says David D. Is that regarding the tradespeople? Contractor not complying to legislation are costing NI funds millions by illegal use of self-employment, says Pat. There is a website you can go to check all this, by the way. It's called Construction Isle of Man. And that's the website address is constructioniom.im, constructioniom.im, which will tell you, it's a very flashy website, and it will tell you all about getting qualified tradespeople to do work. All clerks of works and works inspectors, building control officers are under strict instruction not to check trades cards and tradesmen and who's qualified. Apparently, says Fran. Now, Fran, is this Skeet? You're not making this up, are you? Fran says they're told not to rock the boat and only check on private household jobs. Government-appointed contractors are fully exempt from scrutiny and are using unskilled labour, some of whom get paid in cash. Well, that's completely unsubstantiated, so that's an opinion at the moment. But it would be nice to know. If wheel clamping is against the law, why is St Paul's Square in Ramsey clamping vehicles, says Graham. Well, it isn't. You can't really... That's not private land, is it? Is St Paul's Square private land? Having worked in a pharmacy for 22 years, I've seen the increase of sick people and the extra load on medications prescribed. There's no way to foresee how many people will get sick and be injured, so it's not possible for a budget to be calculated. So I'm disgusted by the lack of common sense when budgets on our healthcare or value of having healthy Manx residents is undervalued, and the health minister's more interested in killing sick people. I don't think she's interested in killing sick people off. Health is more important than seawalls or EV government vehicles, says CC. Well, that's always been the problem when you have a healthcare system, and this the Western world has found this out, when you have a healthcare system which is free at the point of use, and the demand for which is theoretically unlimited, because let's face it, everybody wants to be healthy. I'm not suggesting everybody wants immortality, but people are living a lot longer than they used to, and the combination of pharmaceuticals and the medical industry is keeping people alive a lot longer. So the price is going up. But at some point, surely there does have to be a budget. Qualified people for the right job? Says 380. It appears only the building trade are under scrutiny. My daughter rang 36 times to get a doctor for her son. Maybe having people do what they're trained to is the right option. 36 times. A quick question for the listeners. How much does scaffolding cost on Douglas Promenade seawall, as it seems to be getting replaced on a daily basis due to the rough seas destroying the scaffolding? Fred is an angry taxpayer. And I work in the civil service, says 917, so I can't put my name out there. But I just want to add to the comments made about people wanting to chat to government via their computer. We man our phone lines and avoid call handling software wherever we can. You want to ask a question, pick up your phone and a human will do their best to help. If you try that across with HMRC and the like, you'll appreciate how hard the civil service really does try to assist the public. Thanks for that, 917. Hello, Vivian.
Hello, Andy. In the last couple of months, and this is fact, I know of 2 people that have been able to walk out of Nobles Hospital, past the nursing staff, past everything. One caught a bus to Ballaugh, and the other was out all the other night. Now, where is the security in the hospital?
So, were they fully... I mean, they weren't in pyjamas. They were fully dressed, presumably.
No, one was in her dressing gown.
A dressing gown?
Yes, and she caught the bus from Nobles to Ballaugh. And that's as true as I'm sitting here.
And she walked in dressing gown and slippers, presumably, and walked to the bus stop in front of the hospital and got a bus.
Yes.
And what's happened to her subsequently? What's happened?
Oh, well, fortunately, she knew where she was going because she has family there and they took her back. But that's not the point. She had to walk out past the nurse's station. She had to walk out through the cafe. And nobody stopped her.
Yeah.
And it was the same with the gentleman that you spoke about, or Manx Radio spoke about, Peter Canepa. He walked out, and he was out all night.
So
now, I know him as well.
Well, so as far as the lady's concerned, what time of day was it?
Probably midday.
Right, okay. Well, to be fair, the place is teeming at midday, isn't it? And lots of people do go outside, let's face it, for a quick drag. They go out for a cigarette.
But she won't. If you know somebody has got dementia or something like that, if somebody, you'd say, where are you going, love? You know, just checking them.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'll be honest with you. I find it surprising that nobody said something, particularly the bus driver, for one.
Well, that's as true as I'm sitting here.
Anyway, so is the lady back in hospital or is she still at home?
Oh, no, she's back in... Oh, I don't know where she is now, but that's not the point. It's the principle.
No, that's a very good point, Vivian. Thanks for calling today.
That's all right. Bye.
Bye-bye. 17 minutes before 1. Did you know about this?
Oh, blowing a hoolie out there.
Come in for a bravig by the fire. Just stocked up at Hearth. Never been so warm.
Who's that? Hearth?
Aye, they've got kiln-dried hardwood for me log burner, Colombian coal and smokeless ovals for the open fire, kindling and firelighters all delivered. Great value too.
All goes up the chimney anyway, so I pay more. I'll be giving Hearth a call.
Check their website as well. Just order and they deliver.
For all your fire fuel needs, call Hearth on 560 577 or visit hearth.co.com.
At the first store, the bowls were too small. No good for my porridge, Goldilocks thought. At the second store, the chairs were too hard and uncomfortable. But at the third store, the beds were so comfy. That's because she was in Millie Chaps of Ramsey, where everything is just perfect. Right now, find bargains across every department at the Millie Chaps winter sale, including carpets, flooring, sofas and dining. Plus amazing stressless bedroom furniture and accessories. Don't miss the Millie Chaps winter sale. Good choice, Goldilocks.
Caring for a loved one with special needs can be overwhelming.
With my mobility issues, I find it difficult to manage.
This is when Top Care Nursing can help. Proud to be an Isle of Man Award for Excellence winner, their friendly, professional team of carers and nurses offer a wide range of home care services. From help with daily tasks to giving round-the-clock care, Top Care Nursing can even take blood tests in the home. For a free consultation, call 628 919 or visit topcarenursing.im.
Have you still got some questions about this year's budget? Well, the Treasury Minister, Dr. Alex Allinson, is ready to answer them live. From 5 p.m. tomorrow, we'll be at Lukey's Bar and Lounge at the Palace Hotel in Douglas. You can be part of the conversation by sending in your questions via email, studio@manxradio.com, or text 166 177. Tune in live on Manx Radio FM from 5 p.m. But if you can't listen then, no worries. You can catch up later with the podcast. Manx Radio's budget coverage is brought to you by Crow Isle of Man.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Well, fast am I. Good afternoon. It's going to be a good show tomorrow with Beth live with Dr. Allinson live at Lukey's in the Hilton. Is it the Hilton these days? Oh, it's the Palace, isn't it? I forget. Yes, the political system is in the WEF pocket. That's the World Economic Forum, isn't it? Standing for election never makes a difference, says Andy. Not when overpaid, unnecessary civil servants pull the strings. They're following agendas set elsewhere. The political system needs an overhaul with a grassroots working class uprising, says Andy. Well, there is going to be an uprising. It's the election next year. September next year, there will be an election. And it's, I understand your opinion, but it is somewhat of a philosophy of despair, isn't it? Because if nobody cared, then what would we do then? thank the Lord, we do have lots of people who put in their time and expense and their courage to stand for public office. It is not an easy thing to do. Having chatted to all the candidates in the previous elections, it's stressful, very stressful. Some people get very good at it, but for some people who are doing it for the first time, it's difficult and very nerve-wracking. But thank the Lord, people do put themselves forward. And remember, the Isle of Man is really privileged. The fact that we're very, very close to our politicians. Most of us know politicians, or know people who know politicians, and we get to see them, like tomorrow. Dr. Allinson will be live in Lukey's talking to Beth and members of an invited audience, and will be answering questions. Next Wednesday, Dr. Allinson will be on Mannin line to chat to. I strongly suggest that the person who is considering chat windows, that you look at Amazon Customer Services, who in the end may pass you on to another line manager, but who are the real people at the end of your question, the window or the chat window, instead of headless chatbots who can get things wrong. Am I asking too much? It's been enabled before, says Robert, but we don't know. But I mean, do you use the government website? Do you think it's up to speed? Do you think it's posh? Do you think it's brand new? Is it 21st century? The gas reserves that are said to be off Mackle Head, surely there need to be gas processing or handling plant onshore to refine the gas, says Charles. I'm sure there'll be objections to that. Better surely let one of the UK gas companies extract the gas for the UK market and have them pay the Manx government royalties, as it's in Manx waters. What do other people think? Well, I think it's not going to come ashore, Charles. It's if Kroger get the go-ahead, they'll drill a kind of well there, and it will be piped off to the existing infrastructure that's in the gas field in Morecambe Bay, that Walney Bay, is it Walney Bay? Anyway, the gas field in Morecambe Bay, which is enormous. I mean, it's huge gas reserves in Morecambe Bay. So it won't be piped here, simply because they could do it, and they have said in the past they could have done it, but it was just far too much gas for us to use. So then we have to pipe it off somewhere else. But as it stands at the moment, nothing's happening. One of the things that could help our health services is people not expecting expensive experimental treatments and moaning on social media when it's denied. Just be a bit more specific, could you, 979? Do you have to have any qualifications to be an MHK, says Anne in Douglas. Not really. As long as you don't have that much of a criminal record, you can stand to be an elected representative. So, what's the point of the question, Anne? David H. said, this green agenda has nothing to do with saving the planet. The planet will exist long after humanity has destroyed itself. Well, that's an interesting point, because the planet's been around for millions of years, hasn't it? Humanity's been around for what? A couple of 100,000? When did we crawl out of the swamp? And we've only been engaged in heavy industry for a couple of 100 years. So that's a point, isn't it? The planet will just look after itself. We'll be gone. We won't be here anymore.
EVF, fueling the island and fueling you. With a great range of fresh foods and everyday essentials at our filling stations. And always great offers too. Ellen Mannin Fuels.
Spectrum Windows. If your house needs a new look and your windows let in rain, keep those cold breezes out and make it look like new again. Spectrum Windows, Spectrum Windows. Quality through and through. Great work guaranteed to you. Spectrum Windows, Spectrum Windows. Spectrum Windows.
Celebrate the Snug being 15 this year and save hundreds of pounds with 15% off the supply and installation of solid fuel stoves. Sale ends 28th of February. Visit the Snugs Ramsey showroom 6 days a week or call 818187.
Are your details accurate on the electoral register? If you're aged 16 or over, registration is required. and may improve your credit rating. If something has changed or you move house, you can update your details anytime. But if you want to vote in the local authority general elections in April, your information needs to be accurate before the 25th of March. Register or update your details online. It only takes a minute. Just search Electoral Register Isle of Man. For assistance, email elections@gov.im or telephone 685 754. Don't lose your vote. Register now.
Gilg 2, Gilg J as Gilg Mera.
Avashanrish. A Gilg, the Manx Gaelic, Chinian Amera, the mother tongue of Ellen Vannin, the Isle of Man. Avashanrish. You can catch up with more of Manx Radio's Manx language programmes in the weekly podcast Abershenrish. Say that again. Abershenrish. Shene, that's the one.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Oh, just a quick word about Ronaldsway. EasyJet from Gatwick having to hold for nearly an hour, delaying my flight by 50 minutes. They were due to land at 10:55 with an airport closure scheduled at 11 a.m, but probably denied landing. The official NOTAM, which if you're not an air person, it's a notice to airmen, the official NOTAM states no runway movement 15 minutes before closure, but in fact this should only apply to departures to protect against an emergency on or after takeoff. So why are the Air Traffic Control Management and or the Manx CAA applying the rule for arrivals? Would Geoffrey Pugh care to comment? This is. And by the way, says Torchy, Michelle Hayward MHK is off the mark, saying that the Liverpool and Manchester cancellations are purely EasyJet commercial decisions. Situations like today have a massive effect of the flight having the EasyJet from Gatwick having to hold for nearly an hour. Can you imagine how much fuel that used? Well, thank you for that. If anybody's got any follow-up on that EasyJet from Gatwick, then by all means do get in touch. And Julian's on now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. I should imagine we'll be hearing a statement from the Green Party leader as to jumping up and down about this fuel being used on flights being held up then.
Yeah.
Haven't heard anything, have you?
No, so far. What's on your mind? You got 2 minutes, Julian, by the way.
Yeah, something that might be useful to try and cut back on what might end up being £400 million spend at Manx Care. Might be nice to actually introduce vitamin D tests. I noticed also India is the primary producer of vitamin D, and wholesale price per person per day for a 4,000 IU, which is available in Holland and Barrett or any of the health shops, so it's available to just buy, at 1.5 pence per day, or just over a fiver a year. It's also implicated in dental health, of course, with the mineralisation in the teeth, when, of course, that's the knock-on effect. If you've got good teeth, you don't have all those dental caries, and then you don't have all this thing that is implicated with heart problems, diabetes, all this type of thing. So for 1.5p a day, but, even if people were to say, oh, well, that sounds like a lot, well, why isn't it's not being tested for? If you don't know, I mean, I've seen many papers where they're saying 90% of people, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, are severely depleted in vitamin D, and they all say it's an important vitamin to have. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it would be save an awful lot if you had a lot more people healthy, just from the fact that they don't realise they're walking around, like 90% empty on a vital vitamin.
But again, this is where, members of the public, we're not sure about this. We don't know. So you have somebody with an opinion. Somebody then says they've got a contrary opinion, and they'll cite medical fact. So the public are kind of in the middle here, as in most things, Julian. Nobody quite knows which way's up.
Yeah, but if people were to have their vitamin D tested, that wouldn't be an opinion, would it, if it was very low?
Right,
that's,
okay.
That's fact.
Okay, all right, appreciate it. All right, Julian, good to hear from you. Thanks for being with us today.
Cheers, Andy, thanks.
4 minutes before 1. This time next week, by the way, if you're interested in standing in Peel for the local authority elections in April, There's a special evening organised for residents of Peel if you're interested in standing as a commissioner in Peel. It's at the Centenary Centre on the 27th of February, a week today, 7:30 in the evening. And there'll be, I think Hazel Hannon's going to be there, and she knows what she's talking about. A message in from Marty who said, well, seeing as Elon Musk's grandmother was from Liverpool, couldn't we ask Elon Musk to come to the Isle of Man to sort things out? You're not suggesting we're an adjunct of Liverpool, are you? But anyway, yes, Elon Musk's grandmother was a Scouser. Anyway, that's it. Thanks to Chris on the phones. Back tomorrow with another open line. Enjoy your Thursday.
WINT